This is the Moshpit Backstage podcast for punk, metal and rock interviews and segments.
Hi, this is Rob from Encircling Sea, and you're listening to the Moshpit on Sin.
Rob Allen is guitarist and vocalist of Melbourne band Encircling Sea, whose new album, Harken, will be released on April 6th. They'll be also playing at Max Watts on May the 8th as part of Direct Underground Fest. Rob, thank you so much for joining me.
You're welcome.
Let's talk a little bit about how the band got started first. It started about 2009. How did that all happen?
Very haphazardly. I was putting on a show for my friends Robotosaurus from Adelaide, who were touring with an American band called The Network, and I was organising a Melbourne All Ages show, and they needed an opening band, and I just said, oh, well, I'll just organise something. And me and my friend Dace at the time, who started the band, had been talking about doing some sort of doomy drone project for a while. And we said, oh, let's just do that. Let's just, figure something out and do a set just for fun. And then we got our drummer, Matt, involved, and it kind of became Encircling Sea. That way we wrote a song and had two jams and played the show, and we were a band.
Interesting.
So, we'd been friends. Like, we're all been friends for a long time, and it was just kind of another thing to do together, something that we'd all loved stylistically for ages, and just was an excuse to start another band together, really. And it has become something a fair bit larger than its humble beginnings, I guess.
Yeah, you'd say so. Where did the name come from?
So Encircling Sea refers to a term via, which is actually my solo black metal project, but the word itself comes from J.R.R. Tolkien's stories about Arda and the Lord of the Rings stories. So Vaya in his stories is an encircling sea that surrounds some land mass, and it is a place that fosters no life, and it's a really desolate place where no one can sail ships, or there's no sea life living and stuff like that. So that's where the name comes from. What it's become to mean is a fair bit different to that, but that's its origin, I guess. For us now, it more refers to being literally surrounded by ocean here in Australia, and being connected to nature in every way, shape, and form, whether that be materially or spiritually.
Nice. Talking about the album Harken, when you start working on that, you released your last one in 2013. At what stage did you start writing material for this one?
Probably 2013. Generally, by the time something's recorded and written, I'm generally a fair chunk of the way through whatever's coming next. So I'm pretty sure some of the songs on Harken were started at least back in around 2013, 2014. In terms of working on them as a band, that came much later, and then recording them even later. But I'm constantly working on things. I might have songs for a year or two before we actually get into the rehearsal room and work on them.
So for you personally, how do you go about writing material? Do you jam? Do you write down on paper? How does it work for you?
For writing music, you mean?
Yeah.
Also,
yeah.
So writing music for me is just picking up the guitar and playing. Never really with too much in mind. If I'm writing new songs, it's just trying to find riffs that suit whatever mood I'm in. And I might sit down and go, okay, I'm going to write some Encircling Sea songs. That's about as specific as I'll get. So I know that I'm writing within the parameters of that band, because I have a few projects. I've obviously got to pick maybe where a riff is going, what project it's going into, or at least before I start playing guitar, I'm going, okay, I'm going to work on Encircling Sea songs or Via songs or something else. but usually it's not terribly specific. I just start writing riffs and try and write something that flows into that. And usually it's a lot based on whatever I'm going through or however I'm feeling at the time. So, they might be happy, they might be sad, they might be quite angry. It really just depends. It's always been an outlet for me to express myself. So I pick up the guitar and play away my woes.
Fair enough. And how about the rest of the band? When do they come in, and what does that look like?
So yeah, forming the songs as a band is usually a bit more specific. It'll be we get together in the rehearsal room, and I just play through the song, basically how I've written it, and we just start jamming it. I'll just go, oh, this is what I was thinking in this part, and this part, and the drummer will just start playing kind of stuff that I suggest, and then editing it down to his style and working on bits and pieces and going, oh, that doesn't work and that bit's too long, and we just edit it basically, and just play it until it feels right.
Interesting. I sometimes come to this question, but like in terms of feeling right for you, for the band, what is that like? Is it some sort of something that you just feel listening to music? Is it some sort of quality of the music itself that could be measured objectively? What does that look like?
It'd probably just be more about structure and timing. So it would be, does this part, go for long enough that it gives the song enough time to breathe and for the vocals to happen, for the story to be told, or does it set up the next part well enough? Does it crescendo into the next part well enough? Does it bring the mood down? It's just kind of just playing it until it's kind of hard to explain. I guess it's an unspoken thing in a lot of ways, especially with some of the longer, more drawn out sections and quieter sections often too, are something that we'll just play based on feel. So, sometimes in the jam room we might play it for far longer than it is on the record, or, how it would be when we do it live. Sometimes we're just enjoying it too much to stop playing it. But I think this record, more than the last ones, is a bit more precise, and certainly the songs are shorter. So there's a little less room for that, but still the same principle applies, that we try and just make everything feel like it goes for long enough and not too long and not too short, that it, accurately kind of portrays what I've originally written in my bedroom, or, when I've been playing guitar.
Listening to some of your previous material, there's a real transformation in a number of different things. One, vocals are far more prominent. I think they're barely there in the first two. Two, Obviously the tracks are split up far shorter than the 40 or 50 or whatever minutes it was for the first two. And also the music, I think it's sort of, as you kind of said, it's more precise, particularly in this latest one. Can you talk a little bit about what's happened in the past, I don't know, what has it been, 9 or so years that sort of moved you along that direction?
Yeah, I think when it started and we were playing long songs, kind of just almost for the novelty of playing a long song. Like when we recorded the demo first album, it was the song length was kind of a running joke. It was like trying to make it as long as possible just for the sake of it, like without being too absurd, but it is absurd when you listen back to it. It's just kind of long for the sake of being long. Like when we used to play that song, the very first album, live, it only went for 20 minutes. And then, the recording is 47 or something ridiculous. And writing long songs at the time was just, I think, what needed to happen to get through all the riffs that I wanted to. The riffs that I was writing were really long. So if you played something 4 times, it was like 3 minutes later. And I think that's just kind of gotten more concise organically, not really in a sort of deliberate fashion where I've gone, I want to write shorter songs, but it's just kind of happened. I don't feel the need to dwell on things as long and brood within the songwriting, I suppose. And the previous records, in a lyrical sense, had a little more to do with reverence and awe of nature and kind of that almost like silent worship and personal ritual within nature. So it was kind of my way of facilitating that through music was to write long songs so you could have periods of time to meditate on them. And the new ones are probably a little more to the point and a little more aggressive because of a multitude of factors, but I guess in terms of their lyrical context, they're a bit more decisive and not so contemplative or
contemplative.
There you go.
Back to sort of the album more generally now. In terms of the name Harken, where does that come from?
So I'll answer that in a little bit of a roundabout way, but the previous records have been about, as I was saying previously, about nature and kind of that reverence for nature, and particularly me finding my connection within it. And the last album, of Forgotten Land, was very particularly about me connecting to the natural world, and it all kind of precipitated me leaving the city to move to the country, and it had a lot to do with that and this feeling of trying to find home. And I thought, for me, that purely was, home amongst the gum trees. It was just out in the bush, silent contemplation, trying to, find my life out there and build a family. And that's kind of where it stopped. And Harken is a lot more to do with realising, particularly after having kids, which is something I've had 2 kids in the last 5 years. For me, that it doesn't just stop with, finding your place in the world or your supposed place in the world and finding a place where you feel happy and just making a life. It actually depends a lot, and this is, I'm going to say for me, but probably more broadly for everyone, to a connection to those that have come before you. So Harken it speaks to, calling back to your ancestors and connecting with your ancestors in the ways of old, and the record deals with the rituals of my ancestors through thousands of generations. So they're spiritual manifestations of nature worship and fire rituals and stuff like that, and kind of it's my way of kind of figuring out how they found meaning in life so I can find some meaning too.
And the album cover, what's the meaning behind that?
So the album cover is an oak leaf, and the oak trees, particularly for my ancestors. I'm a British Isles child, pretty much through and through. I go, my ancestry is Scotland, pretty much. It's very European, very Anglo-Saxon. The oak tree is a very important spiritual tree for those ancestors of mine. So I chose that tree and the leaf of it, because it's a beautiful image, and it has a beautiful kind of lineage within the story of, ancestral kind of ritual and spiritual practice.
Speaking of sort of symbols, the symbol that appears on your first album, I think in the top left, does that have any sort of particular meaning?
Are you talking about the drippy dotty type thing?
Yeah.
So that's just a band logo that says ES. So that's just something that's been with us since we started. Encircling Sea was an ES logo that I drew up.
I thought so, but I wasn't quite sure.
Yeah, it's a little hard to read, and I've never really ever explained it in a public forum, so it just kind of is what it is. I don't use that symbol so much; it doesn't even appear on this record. It's been on everyone previous, I think. but yeah, that's kind of just the symbol that's been with us since we started.
Sort of speaking broadly about like lyrical sort of concepts and sort of the themes kind of broadly, but like where does the lyrics come into the process, and how do you go about writing them?
Lyrics will generally come in once a song is pretty formed, at least for me on guitar. Doesn't necessarily have to be something that we've jammed as a band, but once I've kind of figured out a rough structure on the guitar, I'll start to think about lyrics. And often I may be just making sounds while I'm playing, or I may be sitting down and writing very intently about something very specific, but it's kind of a less organic process, but how it actually happens is quite organic. I think I have to sit down and think about what I'm going to write about for quite a long time. I have to do research into things to make sure I'm talking about the right stuff, but then when it's actually time to write it, I sit down and it just comes out. And pretty much that's how it stays. So I don't do a great deal of editing, but there's certainly some. But I think there's quite a lot of preparation leading up to the point where I can feel comfortable enough to just blurt it out.
That makes sense. You'll be playing at Direct Underground Fest. For a band like you who have had a lot of long songs, as you've sort of talked about, have some ideas of kind of playing songs differently. Like, what does your set look like?
So our set for Direct Underground will be a pretty general set now. I think depending on, I'm assuming I know the set length that we're going to get, but it will just probably be 3 songs off the album. We're not going to play any old songs at this point. And the 3 songs that we're going to play, pretty much fill half an hour quite perfectly. So with enough time to tune and make some noise between them and try and catch my breath. For all of us, try and catch our breath. But yeah, generally it's not a plethora of songs in our sets, and certainly it used to be that we'd only play 1 song live, and then we got a bit more into the habit of playing 2. But now, as the songs are a bit shorter, we can generally play maybe 3 or 4. And that fills up a good half an hour to 45 minutes. So
this is a question which I sort of still struggle to find a good way to ask, but like when you're on stage, what is it kind of that you feel you're doing? Like what is it you think you do that will kind of make a gig successful?
I think if we can create the right atmosphere and that the songs just work, then that'll be a successful gig. If we have anything, like if stuff goes wrong, that will really throw the mood. The mood's kind of the main thing, I think, at least for me, and certainly for the rest of the band whenever we've played shows, although these run of shows coming up is a pretty new lineup, but certainly in the past with the drummer and I, who are still the original members, we rely a lot on the mood being right. So that might be lighting, it might be a lack of lighting, having it very dark, or having it candle lit, or bringing our own lights, or making sure the mood is right, making sure that our gear works, because we've got a lot of pedals, multiple amps, stuff like that. The worst thing that can happen in an Encircling Sea show is someone's amps stop working, or if I break a string, I don't really have time to stop and change it. So those things make it unsuccessful for me. In terms of the crowd, without dismissing them, I don't really think about them that much. I hope that what we do can warrant them paying attention. And, if people pay attention and they applaud, I'll be over the moon. But I'm not expecting anyone to start a moshpit or, start headbanging. Most of our shows, people just kind of just stand there and gently nod their heads. And I think if we can capture the audience up in the mood that we're creating for ourselves on stage, and it's 100% been a successful show.
Where does your appreciation for nature and sort of your personal heritage come from?
So the how do I start that? I guess it comes from feeling very lost. I lived in the city for a long time and kind of got to a point where I just felt no connection to anything. It was just very rootless. I wasn't near my family. I wasn't in nature very often, and all we seemed to do was, go to gigs and go to pubs and go to work and just do things that really had no meaning whatsoever. So reconnecting with this kind of childish love of being in the outdoors came from that, just being desperately bored of the city. And that, in a broader context, kind of led to trying to figure out who I am. And, I think it was around the time of the last record I was turning 30, or I had turned 30. So often that's a period of crisis for many people. It certainly was for me. I really didn't know who I was or where I was going or what I was doing. I was engaged and am now married and was thinking about having kids, but didn't want to do it in the city, and had decided to move out to the country, and that had to be years away, and the waiting to do that was driving me slightly insane. So getting out into nature and connecting with it kind of grounded me in a way. So that was just an interest born out of necessity, I think. And my personal heritage and connection to my ancestors and stuff has 100% come around from having kids, and just the craziness that unleashes on your mind, I think, in a way of you kind of realise that you're just not in a depressing way, but you're part of a line that's thousands and thousands of years old, and I think we can all do a great service to ourselves to learn a little bit, at least, about where we come from, no matter where it is that we come from.
When did you first start listening to heavy music?
Oh, when I was a teenager. Just an angry teenager who got into punk rock and hardcore, and that just got heavier and heavier as I got slightly older. I think I got right into grindcore when I was 16, 17 sort of thing, and certainly the sludge and the black metal came a bit later, but it's all kind of been going down the same track. It's like looking for a certain thing within music that only heavy music could provide me, I guess. But yeah, it's been somewhat of a lifelong obsession of mine.
When did you first start playing the guitar?
Around the same time. So just when I got into punk rock, basically, I was like, I want to play guitar. So I had the tennis racket out and was practicing my strumming and chord changing, and then got a 3/4 nylon string acoustic and covered it in stickers and played punk rock songs on it, and eventually upgraded to an electric by the time I was, I think, 16 or something. And haven't really looked back.
And last question, when did you first start doing vocals?
That was a bit at the same time too, I think. Like, just getting into heavy music, you kind of, if you've ever been someone who gets into heavy music, you're fascinated by how the hell they make that sound. So, like, being someone who naturally wants to play music, I just feel like it's something that's in me. I have to do it. It's like, okay, this is not something I choose to do, it's something I have to do. So singing was a natural extension of that, and just getting into heavy music, I was like, I want to make that sound. And you just hear vocalists all the time. I'm just like, how the hell did they make that sound? I want to learn how to do that. So I think it's just out of pure obsession getting into that. But yeah, probably around 16 as well, I've been working on vocals. singing through my little guitar amp and driving my neighbours crazy.
Encircling Sea, new album Harken, will be released on April 6th, and they'll be touring, playing in Melbourne at Direct Underground Fest on May 8th. Rob, thank you so much for joining me. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you.
Thanks for listening to the Moshpit Backstage podcast. You can subscribe to us on iTunes and Omni. To find out more about the show, go to www.syn.org.au/moshpit. Like us on Facebook at facebook.com/moshpitonsyn and follow us on Twitter and Instagram at moshpitsyn. The regular Moshpit radio show broadcasts punk, rock and metal tunes and interviews every Thursday nights on Syn 9.7 on FM and digital radios. Listeners outside of Melbourne, Australia can stream Syn 9.7 online at www.syn.org.au. Thanks to Vintage Ruin for the music.
Hi, this is Tomato from Flashgun Apocalypse.
Hi, I'm Enid from Girls School.
I am Phoebe Pinnock from Heaven the Axe.
Hey, this is Gary Oldmead of the Misfits.
Hey, this is Kat Sproul from Horizon's Edge, and you're listening to the Moshpit on Syn FM.
Hi, this is Einar from Leopard.
Hi, I'm Virginia Lilly from the band Lily.
This is Raul from 1349.
Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Ali from Beaverhead.
Hey, everybody, this is Charlie Benante with Anthrax, and you are listening to the Moshpit on Syn.